Right, good morning, everyone, or whatever time of day it is in Brisbane, Australia. So we have someone joining us from a very far-flung part of the world. Good morning. Really lovely to see everyone this morning, virtually, of course. Thank you for joining us for this sunny-ish November day in England, in Birmingham. I am currently in the office today, which is quite exciting to be in the office and actually see people and work with people. So today's business club is on the subject of entrepreneurship and cultivating entrepreneurship. It's a great subject. It's something that's close to my heart. I've been working with businesses ever since I, was younger anyway. And we're very pleased that you could all join us today to hear a little bit about the support that's available within the region at the university and through other partnerships as well. So just a bit of background set up before we move forward. The University of Birmingham was set up in 2013, so we're 8 years running to act as a gateway for businesses, an opportunity for academics and businesses to collaborate, to work together, and to get an opportunity to discuss opportunities for funding. So business club this morning, we've started now, 9 o'clock. We will finish at 10 o'clock on the dot, or just a little bit before, hopefully. If you have any questions, please make sure you pop those in the Q&A box. If you have any technical issues, please let us know in the chat as well. My colleague Chris will be monitoring that throughout the session. So our guest speakers today. Oh, I just should say, follow us on Twitter as well. We're on LinkedIn, but follow us on Twitter at UOB Business Club. If you have any questions or observations, please pop that on tweet as well. So before I introduce all of our speakers, just see where we're up to in numbers. Okie dokie, let's crack on then. So, okay, let me introduce our first speaker today. We have 3 speakers as well as myself. So we have Nicola Gittins, who's the Deputy Director for Student Entrepreneurship and Enterprise at the University of Birmingham. We have John Sewell, who's the founder and CEO of Cosmo, a startup company that has benefited from the university support and much more widely, and Pam Shimar from Natwest. But for now, shall we kick off with Nicola? Nicola, are you available to start?
Yes. Good morning, everybody.
Super, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate. Yes, and thank you for that introduction, and good morning. As I said, I'm on campus this morning, so from reasonably sunnyish Birmingham. Good morning, everybody. As Kate says, my role is the Deputy Director of Student Entrepreneurship and Enterprise here at the University of Birmingham. It's a new role. It's a role that the university launched, if you like, in the summer. And it sits, as it says there, within a careers network. And I think there's 2 aspects to really important part of that: the fact that it's new and it sits in careers network. So the university is very much committed to supporting student entrepreneurship. Now, that's not to say that before the role nothing was happening, because it certainly was, and a huge amount of activity has been taking place in various guises for a number of years. But what my role really is there, and it says, is what we want to do is look at every single touch point that we can engage our students and graduates in to excite them about the value of being entrepreneurial. And that's right through from looking at the curriculum and right through to the fact that we now have an incubator. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today, how we're using all of those touch points to support our students and our graduates to ultimately take from it those skills, the value of being entrepreneurial in their working life, but also right through to startup and how we're supporting that. So that's what we're working on, exciting our students about the value of being entrepreneurial. So if you look at the next slide, what we've got here is our framework. This is what we're working on. And as I said, what we want to do is make sure that every single touch point that we possibly can do is supporting our students. Because what we want our students to do is think about being entrepreneurial as a really valid career destination. As I said, I sit in Careers Network. And what we want to do is think that students is actually setting up your own business is a really viable option upon graduation. And we will help you get there. So we start really right through in the curriculum. One of the things that we're really keen to do is make sure that on most of our programs, we are supporting students in giving them the skills through either modules or the way that we assess them to take those entrepreneurial students of design thinking, creativity, innovation, because no matter where they go in their career journey, they're going to need those skills. So in effect, this ecosystem, which I'm just going to talk through in a little bit more detail, is providing multiple routes, multiple engagement points for students to take those skills and build themselves towards their ultimate career graduate destination. So as I said, we do that through the curriculum. We're also very much about expanding those opportunities and building a community that really helps peer-to-peer support. One of the things that I've seen, certainly at the university since I've been here in the summer, is when we get that community right and we support them, that peer-to-peer support is so valuable. Because in effect, what we're doing is brokering those relationships where students can actually then go on and take out of it the value to maybe start up their own business. And I'll give you an example of that. I had a student who was working on, if you like, making their own watches, and didn't realise that actually they had a really tangible product here and there was value in it and a decent brand and product emerging. They met another student from the business school who was interested in setting up and being a freelancer, but in effect, they came together and created a business. So by that community, we're fostering those connections that ultimately perhaps wouldn't happen otherwise. And that's what a university is about. A university is okay, you get your degree, but it's more than that degree. It's a transformational moment in quite a lot of people's lives. And if we broker those relationships early on, who knows what's possible. So we're educating, we're expanding students, and we're hopefully also empowering them. Through the Knowledge Exchange programme, we are actually working to develop things like boot camps. We are looking at various skills programmes. We are looking at lots of different ways that we can support our students, and we're engaging with businesses on that. We've got a boot camp actually launching tomorrow with St. Lucia. And it's a real commercial problem that the students are working on to look at supporting various areas within St. Lucia in commercial aspects, tourism, etc. And the students are actually coming up with ideas and solutions to a very tangible problem that they're facing. Those students that go through the boot camp will actually be ending up going down to the High Commission in London to present their ideas. And we're also hopeful that we're supporting the students to actually then go and even implement those ideas. Now, that's not towards startup, but actually what they're doing is taking those entrepreneurial skills and we're sparking it. And actually what we're finding now is those sparks that we can do in that empower stage and that expansion stage are really what's then igniting students to think, actually, startup is a really valid career destination. And I'm sure the other panelists will talk in the value of being entrepreneurial and the value of running your own business. As much as it is challenging, is hugely rewarding. And if you get the right support, who knows what's possible. So that empowering stage is working with businesses in various ways. And I would call out, the more that we can do that, the more that we can engage with the business community, the more I think everybody does win because there's benefits out of it. And then we work to sort of experiment. At the experiment stage, we're taking our students onto a much further part of their journey. We support them with ideas and startup. So students can bid here for £500 towards an idea, £500 towards a startup as well. So they can get an ideas fund to play around with that idea. Is there value in it? And equally, £500 if they take that a little bit further and register a business to start up. And then through that, we actually develop almost a sort of pre-incubation program where students are actually supported around the sort of key building blocks of what they would need to take that business, that's next step. So looking at the value proposition, looking at market development, looking at refining that offering so that actually they can see there's some traction in this. And then when they get to that stage, they can then come on to Elevate. And Elevate is our new student graduate incubator program, which has just opened its doors in September, the lovely new building that the university has on Broad Street, the Exchange. So through this ecosystem, as hopefully you can see, we're giving students multiple ways to engage in being entrepreneurial, exciting them about the possibilities. If they stop at the early stages and just take the skills, that's great. If they go on and all the way through the pipeline, through to incubator and beyond, we are showing students there is really valid viable career destinations in being entrepreneurial. So if you look at the next slide, this is a picture of our students. This is the lovely building, as I said, the Exchange in Birmingham. And these are our students that now form our very first cohort. And you'll meet one of them in shortly, John. And these students have all come through various different routes. So we have some students that have joined through the sort of empower and experiment stage. Other students have just decided this is what they want to do and have been doing something maybe through a sideline through their university, and they're now coming to us, they want that support. And we're really proud actually of this first cohort. We've had wonderful feedback from people that have seen and heard the students that they are really good, credible businesses. To get in the incubator, they've all got some form of traction to them. And to get in the incubator as well, they've obviously have got to be a student or a graduate of the University of Birmingham. And we've got a real mixture, a real diversity range of students from our undergrads, postgrads, even doctoral students as well, and obviously graduates, and a real range of businesses, which I will go on through a little while. But they come through different routes, but they're all here now forming that community, and we're giving them support. We're giving them support, as the next slide shows, through a program called UOB Elevate. UOB Elevate is our incubator program. Now, it is a bespoke program, and the reason that we're doing that is all of the businesses are at slightly different stages in their journey. All of those businesses are in different sectors and will need different support. And also, as a university, one of the things that we've got really value in supporting the businesses is using our network. Now, that might be network of academics to solve a challenge that the business has in terms of product design. It might be our business community through, obviously, activities such as this and engaging the business community to support the students. And it might be our alumni as well that can support with mentoring. So all the way through that process, we are designing bespoke interventions. That's not to say, though, that we don't run a core program. So all of these students came through an induction program where you'd expect anything that you expect all the normal aspects of an incubator program, such as support around the value proposition, leadership skills, finance, marketing, selling, etc. So UOB Innovate has got a core aspect to it, but it's also got this bespoke aspect to it. Where we've got to at the moment, we're doing some deep diagnostics work with all of our businesses to identify what that bespoke level of support is. And really what we're doing at the moment is going out to a wider community to say, how can we support these students to the next growth stage? We don't want students, not because we don't like them, to stay too long within the programme, but really if it's too comfortable to sit there, we want to get them to that next level of growth stage and support them to whatever that may be. So on the next slide, if I just give you a flavour of what these businesses are. Apologies, this is very small and you won't be able to see this very clearly maybe. But these are the range of the businesses. And I think this is the other important bit to say about the incubator. We are not sector dependent. It's not tech-led, but we do have tech businesses in there. So for example, we've got a business which is looking at agri-tech. We've got a business there that's looking at medicine, medtech. All ranges. I won't steal any in terms of John's thunder of what he's going to talk about, but we've got esports in there, we've got retail in there, we've got students manufacturing their own shoe brands, their own leisure brands, real exciting array of businesses. And we also have some social enterprises in there. We've got a lovely business team, North Thunder. They are actually looking at how they can use e-supports to support and bring back young people into education and into society, into life as well. So a real range of businesses. And that's lovely for a number of reasons. One, I think there are some clusters that are emerging, so there are some shared synergies there, and we're putting those clusters together. But this community that is being built out of this is really powerful. So we did a session as part of the sort of induction week where students were solving each other's problems. I saw the medtech business help the shoe business with the problem they had. Because even though they're in different sectors, as we all know, being entrepreneurial, there's some really common problems that businesses face. So by bringing these businesses together, we've got that community, we're starting to build that community, so they're helping each other to solve those problems. Now, as the next slide says, this is a community being built upon real genuine opportunities for the wider business community, the wider community as a whole, to support these students and also get involved in the incubator. There is genuine investment prospects with these businesses. So we're looking for and would love to work with people with shared ambitions. We've got one of our businesses, they have got a trading app where students can exchange goods in a very sustainable way. So rather than constantly rebuying stuff, they're actually exchanging products and services. Huzzah, it's just launched in 20 universities, already getting significant traction. And Harriet, the founder, has already secured significant investments. I'm really genuinely excited about the possibilities for the businesses here in the Exchange. And as I said, we have some really good quality businesses and really good quality students and graduates that are really bright and capable. So it does create genuine investment prospects for businesses to engage with. And we're looking for people who do have that shared ambitions. As the next slide says as well, there's huge networking opportunities out of this. We'd love any businesses to start to get engaged with us. It could be that you start to sponsor events. It could be that you provide mentoring opportunities. It could be that this supports maybe a CSR initiative within businesses. But ultimately, as a university, we're really keen to work with businesses on various levels. I think there's a colleague of mine that's in the chat, in the group today, Andrada. She's working with businesses to offer funded internships. I'm sure if that's of interest to anybody on the session today, Andrada will put her details in the chat and that you can respond to that. So we're really keen to foster these relationships and network in the widest sense. That is going to benefit our businesses, and it's also going to benefit the offering that we have as we build this student entrepreneurial ecosystem. The likes of Pam, who again, one of the panelists will talk to you today, the professional services, the financial services sector within Birmingham and West Midlands, again, has been hugely supportive of this. And through those collaborations, we're really helping young people start and grow their businesses, which is really exciting to see. So as I said, really keen on the last slide, as it says, to think about those opportunities to really work with businesses. And whether that's something about mentoring, sponsorship, investment, business support, we're really keen to make sure that our students and graduates are really are retaining, if you like, income in the West Midlands, because they're growing their businesses, they're staying here in the West Midlands, and that's lovely to see for us as a community, but also for our students and graduates. So thanks very much. Happy to take any questions now, Kate, or at the end, whichever is easiest.
No, we have one that's good to answer now. So thank you very much, Nicola. We have a question: can alumni avail of this opportunity whilst also studying in another university in the UK? I think I know the answer to that, but I'll leave you to answer.
Yes, we offer it's open to our alumni. So the fact that we have some students who have gone on a long journey with different universities before they end back up in the incubator. We're saying about up to 5 years out, really, which is the criteria for joining. It is an application process, so your application would be considered against any other applications that we have. At the moment, we're probably going for annual cohorts, so that's at September. But if it starts to grow significantly, then we will look at multiple cohorts. But an alumni of Birmingham is an alumni of Birmingham.
But if they're an alumni of another university, it might not be appropriate, or would you consider that?
We have had that. People have done undergrad and gone to their postgrad somewhere else and come back.
Okay.
So,
but you have to have a connection to Birmingham in some way or another.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's to be honest, the real consideration is on a case-by-case basis as part of the application. But as they're an alumni, we would consider them.
But I think it's fair to say if there are any students on here or undergrads on here at the moment who are at other universities, it's worth looking into what your university will do. Obviously, Birmingham is great, but other universities will have their own entrepreneurship incubator type support programs of one form or another. So it's worth having a look into it. Yeah. Thank you very much, Nicola. If we can move on now to John. John, who's the CEO and founder of Cosmo, who's one of our lovely entrepreneur startup programs. John, if I can hand over to you.
Thanks, Kate. Morning, everyone. And thanks, Nicola, for that lead up, I suppose, because it's really nice to know that I'm going to touch on quite a few similar points. and seeing, just going through that actually reminded me of all of the touch points I've kind of had with the university through my journey. So yeah, I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit about Cosmo and the business itself, and then hopefully kind of bring into that some aspects of the wider support I've had both at the uni but in Birmingham more broadly as well. So Cosmo is an online marketplace and platform that connects artists with the people that love what they make. And unlike other galleries, both on and offline, one of our kind of main USPs is that we don't charge commission fees on sales, with the aim of making art more affordable and accessible for everybody. Instead, the artists pay a monthly subscription, and that's kind of that's all part of this move towards what I see being in the art world a more direct transaction between buyers and sellers. So one thing that's probably worth mentioning is that, and I probably will touch on this again later on, is that we actually rebranded earlier this year, which was a really kind of exciting change and actually coincided with the start of the Elevate program, really. But within that, I thought I'd explain where the Cosmo name came from. If you could move on to the next slide, please. So Cosmo De Medici, I did art history at UOB, and Cosmo De Medici was a figure in art history that I always found really fascinating. He was a patron of art in Florence in the kind of early Renaissance. In some ways, he kind of kick-started the Renaissance, and I really love this kind of quote of his about supporting artists and how much satisfaction that gave him. And what I really want to be able to do with Cosmo is enable a new generation of Cosmos to feel like they can support artists, they can buy their work, and also that artists are able to sell their work and make a living. Because I think, you know, as someone who studied art history and who had done a bit of work in galleries, I was frustrated by how things were working and the barriers that a lot of people face both on the buying and selling side. So that's ultimately where we're coming from, and that's a little explanation behind the name Cosmo. So next slide, please. You know, like I said, one of the reasons that there are these barriers for artists is that ultimately it's very difficult to make a living as an artist. The starving artist stereotype is unfortunately relatively true. It's not a stereotype I like to perpetuate, because I think it puts people off, but it's a reality in a lot of ways. And the average artist in the UK earns less than a national living wage, and that's why only 1 in 5 art school graduates are able to establish themselves as an artist within a short period of leaving university, and why the numbers of artists have actually been declining. At least, you know, full-time self-employed artists have been declining in recent years. So I really wanted to address this, and I see it as being, you know, increasingly actually, that it's being an artist is just like running any other startup or any other business, and we need to kind of innovate and provide support and technological platforms to help artists do this. So I think that's that slide. So next slide, please. So our solution really, like I said, is to connect artists directly with the people that want to buy their work, and as much as possible provide frictionless sales without commission fees, while also giving everybody the security that they might not be afforded on other platforms. So a lot of artists increasingly will try and sell through social media, but there's issues there because you know, if you're just dealing through inbox messages, it's very hard to track things, and you know, it's much more convenient to have a very specific setup for artists that's tailored to them, and also to the buyers as well. And we're working on a number of ways to actually improve the connectivity between the two and enable discovery, really, which is something I'm particularly excited by. So next slide, please. So in terms of where we've come so far, I launched the business originally in 2018, like I said, under a different name, but we've since then, around about a year ago, actually, I got a small amount of angel investment that meant we were able to not only redevelop from a kind of MVP stage, but also go through this rebrand, which has been a really exciting process. And as you can see, we've had more than 1,000 artworks listed, facilitated several £1,000s worth of work. We've got 70 artist members at the moment, and that's literally going up day by day at the moment, which is very encouraging to see. And particularly, I think important is the average artwork sale price in terms of what we're trying to encourage and engender is that art can be affordable, and particularly for the early stage artists who have the biggest barriers to entry and the biggest difficulty in the art industry. That's something that I really am proud to see and glad to see, because it means that art is affordable and support is happening. So if you go on to the next slide, please. So there's not just me in reality, kind of the day-to-day, but I've also got some really great advisors in Asset and Jack. And importantly here, I really want to highlight the three people on the bottom. Carolina and Prachi have actually recently kind of stopped working with me, but they've been amazing support to me, and they were both University of Birmingham students who just volunteered to come and do some work with me, and that was a really nice relationship that we had there. Sam actually is one of the interns that I secured through Andrade, so another shout out to Andrade. But Sam was funded, he got paid £1,000 to do 2 months work with me over summer, and we're actually kind of currently looking at ways we can keep him on. I also had another student called Nadia on the same program at the same time, and that was a really important, timing wise it was really important, because it meant I had a team around me while the rebrand was taking place. And as I'm going to sort of expand on in a minute, that the sort of potential isolation that you can feel as a founder, any ways that can be mitigated, I think that's one of the most important things that all the support in the region that I've experienced can offer, really. So yeah, next slide, please. So like Nicola's mentioned, and like I said earlier, I've had a huge amount of support from the university in particular, but broadly in the Birmingham business community as well. To talk specifically about the university, I just with Nicola's was it the 5 E's earlier on, looking at that, I'm pretty confident that I've kind of been through every single stage of that. During my course, both at BA and MA for art history, I had entrepreneurship modules which I took. I got the ideas fund when I was first starting out, which covered some of the legal costs of terms and conditions and that side of things. I had drop-in sessions with Mohammed during and after that process. Mohammed Ali, who's been really kind of a really great kind of mentor from the university for me. And then now, obviously, I'm part of the Elevate program, working normally. This morning I'm not, but normally out of the incubator space, and also having received the scholarship, which has been a huge, huge amount of support, and really has enabled me to continue to pursue this full time, whereas I otherwise might not have. Beyond that, I think it's worth mentioning all the other support that's out there. Birmingham Enterprise community, the guys there, Dan and Omran, are amazing. I've had a lot of support from them. I was on their Forward Accelerator program, and that was about just over a year ago, so that was really valuable. Similarly, E4F, which is run by Bruntwood, which I did earlier this year, was another kind of accelerator program. led by John Cook, who also does some work with the university and who led the incubation process at the start of Elevate. And he's a really brilliant mentor and someone who, if you aren't connected with, is very worth reaching out to him, not least because he's a LinkedIn guru. So and his wife runs a LinkedIn agency as well. So he's a very useful person on that front. And also Aston University, I've done some work with them on a kind of data research side of things as well. And I haven't actually mentioned them here, but the Greater Birmingham Solihull LEP have offered some amazing free support. And Vernon, who I know Pam knows very well, is a particularly kind of supportive member of the team there. So I would really recommend you get in touch with them. But to kind of wrap things up, I wanted to just say that, and Nicola mentioned this earlier, that I think the most valuable aspect of the support I've had has come in the peer-to-peer element. And it's when each of these communities that I've been part of, whether it's Elevate, Forward, or E4F, the thing I've always got the most value out of is being linked up with other entrepreneurs. And it's because you get to, so when I was thinking about this, I'm now presenting my story and it kind of looks like everything's going okay and all this sort of stuff, which it is in broad terms. But when you spend a lot of time on these programs with other entrepreneurs, week in, week out, seeing the problems they're facing, how they're dealing with them, it's not only very inspiring, but it's just a really good education in how you actually run a business, which you wouldn't really necessarily get otherwise. Just going through the programs, it's really great to be in and amongst it, really. So yeah, so that's pretty much everything from me, really. I think on the next slide there's a few contact details if anyone does want to reach out to me afterwards or wants to connect. But yeah, thanks very much for listening.
Super, that's great, John. Thank you. Excuse me. Could you maybe highlight something that you may have done differently had you not, or something that you think, if only I'd had support on X, Y, or Z? Is there something you'd perhaps really need that we're missing? I
suppose the biggest one on my mind at the moment is just the accountancy side of stuff. Just because so far, none of the financial side of stuff has been, either on money coming in or going out, has been big enough to necessarily necessitate getting an accountant. And I've been able to manage it myself. As I prepare to move forward, I'm now looking to transition into getting accountants and all that sort of stuff. But obviously that's not cheap. But I think, and I don't know, I presume there are resources out there and people out there who would be willing to help startups through that side of things. And in particular, for me, it would have been, I don't necessarily need an accountant. I just need someone to every now and then just sit down with me and go, yeah, that kind of makes sense. That looks reasonable or good. Like you get that in a lot of other senses with business, particularly on accelerator programs. You get it with marketing, you get it with sales, you get it with broader strategy and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I think that's just on the top of my head. That's something at the moment that probably is I'm reflecting on and thinking that would have been valuable for me.
Okay, no, that's useful to know. Perhaps Pam can comment on that actually from the bank perspective, but that's really great. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, John. And we'll make sure those slides are circulated to our delegates as well going forward. So yeah, fingers crossed that you get some good positive results out of the business. But it sounds really, really exciting. Lovely. Now over to our third speaker this morning. Now we have Pam Shima from NatWest. Pam will be talking about her work in the region and the Career Acceleration Pilot Placement Programme and other opportunities available to entrepreneurs. Thank you very much. Over to you, Pam.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for having me on today. It's been really interesting so far. And John, I can definitely help you with that. One of the things before I even start, one of the things we tend to find is one of the biggest challenges entrepreneurs have is knowing where to go for information and just deciphering that information that's out there. So what I'm going to do today is speak about some of the other support that's out there. The university, I must say, is absolutely phenomenal. And myself, I'm passionate about supporting young people. I love working with the university. And the other day I was working from the Exchange building. I mean, what a wonderful venue you have to drop in and work from. So, you know, very, very lucky. And I wish when I was a student, I had all of this support available to me. So I would just say, lap it up. There's so much help. Do lap it up, because this is only going to make you grow and thrive. So what do? I work for Natwest, so that's my day job. But within Natwest, I do various things on championing young people, championing diversity and inclusion, and championing entrepreneurship and the growth of small businesses and large businesses, entrepreneurs. Externally, I'm also a director for Birmingham Tech, which I'll talk about in a minute, and also executive member for the Chamber of Commerce, the Asian Chamber of Commerce, which I'll talk about separately. The Career Accelerator pilot placement is a trial pilot program, which I'm heading up in the bank in terms of championing diversity and inclusion in the bank as well. So that's kind of what I'm doing at the moment. So what we're here for today is just talk about some of the other support that's available. I just want to kind of throw a stat out there. So I can't remember where I read it, but I'll get the source for you. But a university, a business that's supported or spun out from university is 4 times more likely to succeed, 4 times more likely. So that's because the wraparound support and the mentorship, the allyship, and the peer-to-peer support that's available to you. So that's actually kind of testament of the survival rate of entrepreneurs and startups who work alongside universities. So I'd literally write that down and think, actually, you know what, this is me being 4 times accelerated to do well. So I'd use that as an example. So next slide, please, Chris. So I'm going to talk about 3 things. I'm going to firstly talk about Birmingham Tech. So Birmingham Tech is a CIC. It's a startup in itself. It's a business which started about 3 years ago. I'm one of the directors on the business. And essentially what it does is it helps entrepreneurs to connect with tech and tech businesses to grow, thrive, and scale. So essentially what we do is there's 2 elements to it. Birmingham Tech as a CIC, which works on the pillars of inspire, celebrate, and collaborate. Again, that connecting with different ecosystems, that connect with all the partners mentioned today to help you grow and scale. So each one of those different businesses that we work with will have an element to either provide you mentorship or support or advice or that connectivity to someone who might know the answer to what you're looking for. So Birmingham Tech, do have a look at that. There is, if you go to the website, there's information there about what Birmingham Tech is and how you can get involved in that. And it's championed around diversity. When I mean diversity and inclusion, I mean also intersectionality, which is young people, women, different diverse groups as well, from a wider lens. Birmingham Tech Week sits within Birmingham Tech. So it's a week of online, face-to-face, collaborative events. And we had a wonderful event held with the University of Birmingham at the Exchange building, which was a collaborative event with students, with WMG, with lots of advanced, lots of influencers, and that I was totally blown away by the quality and the standard of the entrepreneurs who came from the university, but also BMAT and came across. And in the end, they pitched their ideas and how they were going to fix a problem, which is essentially what entrepreneurs do, right? So you have a problem, you can build something to fix that problem, and that's what you're marketing. So do have a look at that. There's recorded content on there if you want to go back on that. Now, Birmingham Tech do have an accelerator as well. Which there'll be more information about, which you can look into. But we do work very collaboratively with the university. So I'm passionate about that collaborative relationship. So do look at that, look out for it. The events around thought leadership, it's about partnering, and we work with Innovation Alliance, work by Central with the universities. So you can see kind of the theme is collaboration across the West Midlands. So next slide, please. Okay, so Natwest. So Natwest Accelerator. We have something called, there's 2 elements to it. So there's Natwest Entrepreneur Accelerator, which is one. And the second element is the Business Builder. Now, the Business Builder is, I'll start with Business Builder because that's an online program where you can dip in, dip out, and you can get different thought leadership. You can get events on funding. You can get events on leadership. You can get events on how do you network, like what is network? How do you learn to network, scaling up, barriers to acceleration, who do you go to for advice? So there's lots of online information there. And we do run online collaborative webinars, business builder webinars with Mohammed and the University of Birmingham. So there's a real kind of firm relationship there. So do have a look at that if that online support. There is a face-to-face accelerator as well. And what that looks at is for you to apply to the accelerator, and you get supported in terms of peer-to-peer mentorship, community, which is really important, which is what was being discussed about earlier by John, in terms of that learning off others, and that kind of, working together to fix a problem. You've got a cake business sitting next to an engineer and they come up with a new color, that kind of magic happens. So do look at that. What that focuses on is there's elements of, there's a fintech accelerator, there's high growth, there's climate, and there's purpose-led. And Harriet, which was mentioned earlier, the work she does with the university and the accelerator is brilliant. So you can already see those collaborative relationships. So action on that one, take a look at Natwest Accelerator and take a look at the Natwest Business Builder. We work very, very closely with the university, and there's some great thought leadership there to help you grow and scale, and just to answer those questions which you might not know the answers to. Thank you. Next slide, please, Chris. Okay, so this is just chucking something different in here. So the Asian Chamber of Commerce and the Greater Chamber of Commerce and the LEP, which was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of free support and a lot of support that's available for networking, for business support, for advice, for connectivity and access to businesses. Because often what we find with entrepreneurs is what we're looking to do is work with others and partner with other businesses. So I'm on the board for the Asian Chamber of Commerce. And the reason why I call this out is because it is a membership organization. So that sometimes sounds a bit scary, but there is a startup element as well. And there's also a future faces element as well. So do look at the LEPs and the Chambers of Commerces in terms of the support that they give. Now, the Asian Chamber of Commerce is open to everybody. It allows you to access Asian businesses, but also other businesses. So we're having this discussion the other day, like, is it just for Asian people? But it's not, honestly, trust me. It's very diverse, but essentially what the purpose is to collaborate with other businesses. So do look at that. There's also online content as well. There's networking events, there's free networking events, and the Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Chamber of Commerce, does a lot of work in the community in thought leadership and business areas that you might be working on, which will open up opportunities for you. And obviously you've got the Commonwealth Games coming up as well. So there's a Commonwealth Chamber of Commerce, which works very, very closely with the ABCC and the Greater Chamber of Commerce. So I guess what I wanted to cover off today was just other support that's available to you. What I'm very, very proud of is that the West Midlands ecosystem is so collaborative. Someone actually said to me the other day, it's a gentleman called Ravi, basically said he's from, international, had got his business here, did his master's here. He said, you know what, the way I can describe West Midlands is it's like Silicon Valley. He's literally said it's like Silicon Valley, the environment. I've never been to Silicon Valley, he has. So to get that kind of coloration, that made me really proud, because when I think of Silicon Valley, I think of the hub of startups, the hub of entrepreneurship, everybody helping to each other. And that's how he described it. So I'll stop there, I'll pause there for any comments, but I just really wanted to come on board to say, use the support that's out there. Your university is fantastic in terms of the value it's providing for you. I wish I had this when I was a student, which is why I'm so passionate to make sure that you all know it's out there as well. So thank you very much. Over to you, Kate.
That's super. Thank you so much, Pam. It's always great to hear from you, especially you must be really busy during Global Entrepreneurship Week this week. There's been lots of events and lots of activity to help signpost, help talk to people and help all these different things. There is a question from Sue, and I know there's been answered from other colleagues, but it's an interesting one to get your take on. Are there business sectors you think they're more likely to get funding for, or business sectors that you won't get funding for?
Interesting question. I always look at what's topical. So if you think about what is the whole world talking about now? Climate, sustainability, making future-proof. What does that lead to then? That leads to businesses who are maybe doing EV, businesses who are looking at, like, where are we building our batteries? If we're going to have cars future, all running on batteries. Where they're being built right now, they're being built in Poland. So actually, if we're going to be looking at how we're going to be, climate driven, how we're going to be sustainable, how we're going to make things less air miles and things. So top of my head comes, what is topical is climate. But actually, I wouldn't say there's nothing that doesn't get funded. It's how you package it up and how your business idea is going to add value. So essentially, what an entrepreneur does or what an SME does is, here's the problem. It can be very niche. It can be a problem within a problem, or it can be quite wide, something that's going to fix a challenge for somebody else. So essentially, what the funding is going to be given for is, how are you going to fix this problem? How is it going to make the world a better place? And how are you going to get customers to buy the product? So really, it's not a straight in terms of this sector isn't going to get funding, or this sector is going to get funding. It's what are the problems we're fixing now and for the future. So tech is a real enabler. Climate is a real enabler. You've got loads of diversity, women in business, lots of other challenges. You've got young people who've had lots of disruption. It really depends on, it's more the problem within the problem that you're trying to fix rather than the sector itself.
No, that's a fair point. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pam. And now it's rare that I get an opportunity to present. Normally I'm the one hosting, but it's nice that I get an opportunity to talk about further funding and further opportunities. So it's fair to say that there are lots of ways that businesses, or whether they're startup or established or large companies, can access the support available at the university. But if I can show it on the next slide, there is a range of things that could be applicable to your business. Chris, if you can move forward, please. So for SMEs, for small to medium-sized businesses within the West Midlands region, we have a number of sector-specific funding programs that can support particular areas. We're talking advanced materials, maybe in the rail industry, maybe you're in energy or healthcare. There are a range of opportunities available, and this is not just for, as I said, established businesses. We can be looking at maybe feasibility studies for sole traders or entrepreneurs in our student cohort, or any student cohort that are interested in exploring a particular idea. And once you've perhaps established the idea, you've got proof of concept or feasibility, you might want to go a little bit further. You might want to engage with wider and larger funding calls. We have some funding available within the university called impact funding, and provided by the research councils. This one in particular that's out at the moment is from EPSRC, the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Councils, but we have other funding as well from other research councils. So we cover a very broad range of topics and sectors. And it may be that we can provide you with a student or some academic time, or just access to equipment in order to test and validate a particular problem. So all of these things are available. If you think of it as a sliding scale, the support that you get from the graduate programs, the support you get from SMEs, and then moving up that scale, the support gets larger, the access to funding gets bigger. And where we go next, if you're looking at larger grants or larger opportunities, is funding from UKRI, which is the UK, I haven't realised I've spelt that wrong there, but it's UKRI, which is the UK's research and innovation service. Through Innovate UK, they provide collaborative R&D funding through themed calls and through SMART calls. SMART is one of their open general calls. And these are some of the things that are open anytime during the year. They'll have particular launches of particular calls. There's quite a lot at the moment around farming innovation. There is some calls around biomedical catalysts, so that's looking at healthcare, looking at the ecosystem around the healthcare. So there's all sorts of funding available through these mechanisms. You can just Google Innovate UK funding and see what there is available at any one time. There is also larger scale projects. So once you've maybe established, you've got a few employees, you're interested in that next level, you can have something called a KTP, which is a knowledge transfer partnership. And that establishes a relationship with the university and with the business in order to help transfer knowledge from the university into the business in order that they can grow, become more innovative, engage more in the R&D processes. And engaging with the university will enable you to be able to do that and develop. And as KTP is usually for a little bit more established businesses, but we can talk to businesses who are at that early stage, especially if they're scaling up, rapidly scaling up. So, Chris, if we move forward, please. these are some of our SME support programs. We have a number live at the moment, and even though they are European Union funded, they will be available for at least the next 2 years. What happens next? That's all in discussion at the moment with various West Midlands bodies, but you will find out about that in due course. These are the 6, 7 that we have at the moment, looking at advanced materials, looking at alternative raw materials, basically looking at the circular economy, looking at your energy, trying to reduce energy consumption, smart factories, looking at improving the process using digital technologies, DigiRail, which is looking at the whole ecosystem around the rail industry. And this program is not just West Midlands based, it's actually national. We have a scheme up in Sheffield as well. The healthcare industry, in particular, helping scale up and getting access to NHS support. And science to industry is available that can again help with access to equipment, really large scale stuff that you wouldn't necessarily get in a small business. So that's all from me. I just wanted to quickly kind of run through the various options. If there are any queries about that, you can always drop myself or Chris a line and we can follow up with you at a later date. So if I can now bring everybody back to the room for a quick Q&A, that would be absolutely fantastic. I have a couple of questions from attendees, but also if we can bring everyone together, that'd be great. John, Nicola, Pam, if you're available, thank you. So if you have an idea for a product, not just a concept, but maybe early, can these programs help? And a question about IP. So I'll answer this and then maybe move on to Pam and Nicola about how we can develop concepts. So yes, those support programs can help you, point you in the right direction. Even if you have an idea, they can help you develop and move that further forward. Maybe just do the feasibility to rule it in or out. That's usually quite a big step, because if you rule it out, then actually you're not wasting any more of your time. Maybe somebody else has done it, or maybe someone else has got something, but not the whole picture. So it's worthwhile getting in touch for further help that we can provide you. And as opposed to rights, that I'm guessing that means copyright, IP, that kind of thing. No is the honest answer. IP, especially when you've got a developing idea, there is not enough there for us to own. The ownership comes from the business that brings us the idea. If there is a particular project that we are developing as a university in partnership with the business, then we will certainly want to ensure that we have a future collaboration that is meaningful for both parties. We normally ask that we can use the results within teaching and research purposes, because we are an institution of learning and we want to make sure that we can use that going forward. But in terms of IP, then no, we don't own those things. But as I said, it is very much dependent on the project. Nicola, any comments about where people can go for other ideas? How have they developed with the entrepreneurship team?
From a sort of student and graduate perspective, and I think John touched on this, we offer some money at an ideas stage. So we have an ideas fund of £500 that students can apply to. So that might be, testing an idea, it might be buying something, it might be building a website, or anything what you want to do to test that idea. As you say, deciding whether there's some value in it. And at that stage as well, again, John touched on it, through Mohammed, who's our business advisor, you can get that mentoring support. After that, you can go for a startup fund, and then that is where you've obviously got some more traction to it, and obviously right through to incubation. And I think this is the journey that we're trying to create. We've got a set of students that, actually some PhD students, and decided actually they didn't want to go down the research and academic routes. They want to set up something. They did a consultancy challenge, which is part of their program. They applied for startup, and now they're in the incubator. So that's the typical journey. But again, one of the other sort of scholars that we've got, where they've got receipt of a bursary, He didn't do anything and is sitting there with a great social enterprise in the incubator because it's something that he'd been developing as a sideline. So really just talk to us, I suppose, is the quick answer to that, and we'll find a way to support them.
That's a fair point. Yes, just talk to us. Yes, drop us a line. A question for the wider team, perhaps for everybody. So how can we engage with wider businesses, so startups and SMEs, to foster relationships, develop smart young entrepreneurs? We've touched on mentorships, but what else is there, Pam?
I don't mind taking that one. I would say that most organisations, be they private sector or public sector, see the power of supporting young people. Essentially, when we talk about millennials, right, they are now our future managers. They are our future business owners. So I would say reach out if you have an idea. Most businesses will have an entrepreneurial lens. You might look like a bank, but trust me, they will have an entrepreneur. They might look like accountants, but they will look at that entrepreneurial lens, because that's when they're innovating. As soon as they stop looking at entrepreneurial and mindset, and with the entrepreneurial mindset, they're essentially going backwards. So I would say if you have an idea, reach out. Networking's great. It can be a bit of a challenge, and it's not a skill that, you just have to go and talk to people. And realistically, when you go to an event with 100 people, it might seem really daunting, but essentially you're really only going to have a deep conversation with 3 or 4 people, and go with that in mind. Like you can go to an event and there's thousands of people. So realistically, in that hour that you're there, you're not going to speak to all 1,000. So it's what you set yourself out for as well. But I'd say reach out. There's lots.
Pam, I'm conscious that we're having a kind of technical.
Oh,
is that my Wi-Fi or is that Kate?
I can still hear and see you, Pam. I don't know if anybody can still hear me.
I'm good. I think it might.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Is there any more questions, Chris?
We may have lost Chris and
there's just the one question. There's one more question, which was asking if there was any special funding for non-profits, especially when it came to things like disability equipment or other items like that.
Pam, I don't know whether you want to take this, but from our perspective, we are. It's not something that we've looked at the moment, but again, that's not to say that we didn't. But we are supporting social enterprises as well, if that's the question from a general perspective. So we are supporting CIC is a social enterprise setup. It's a slightly different way of incorporating a business, but we are looking at that as well.
Yeah, I echo what you say there, Nicola. It depends on the small sector. So what you're saying is very specific in terms of the disability arena. But yes, there is definitely funding out there for that sector. It's just finding exactly what you're looking for what you're looking to build and grow as a business. So I'd say explore it. Reach out to me afterwards if you want to kind of have any more questions. But there's definitely a need and there is funding available.
Anyway, it's just hit 10 o'clock, so I'll say thank you to you all. And for the people that have managed to get in and attend, I'll send any information, any slides, any links to the recordings to everyone. And yes, thank you very much for being able to speak. So thank you, Nicola. Thank you, John. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Kate. Welcome back.
Sorry about that, but thanks ever so much. And thank you, Chris, for stepping in. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye, everybody.